Well, I'm really surprised by this. The devs have started talking about the mount, the probably biggest single feature from End of Dragons that so far there's been no press about whatsoever. I honestly thought we would have got a dedicated week on it. Maybe they would have been slowly trickling out blog posts or something, but PC Gamer got the inside scoop. There is an article up, and in this video I'm going to give you guys some of my basic takes on it, but basically explain to you everything that we know now about the Siege Turtle, put it into hopefully a context that you guys can understand without having to go through walls of text. So without further ado, let's jump in. I'll show you the trailer. And this one, unlike a lot of the recent ones, has actually got a bit of voice acting on it too, which is quite nice.
Hundreds of years ago, the nomadic Luxon Armada trained massive turtles to bear weapons of war across the Jade Sea. Now, you can raise your own turtle from an adorable hatchling to a cannon-carrying mount. Modern siege turtles are equipped with the latest Jade tech advancements, including powerful jump jets and health boosters. Use these tools to lift your turtle across rough terrain and slam your enemies for massive damage. Best of all, there's plenty of room for a friend. Take your favorite siege engineer out for a ride and make the most of the turtle's cannons.
So this thing definitely looks like a lot of fun. Very striking visuals. I actually woke up this morning to a tweet chain where people were pointing out the way it's designed to look, like the turtle and the snake on there. It's kind of referential to those cardinal beasts of, what is it, Chinese mythology, where you've kind of got one beast for the north, east, west, and south. I can't quite remember the thing's name. It was already kind of referenced in Guild Wars lore at one point as well with the Celestials, and maybe they'll tie all of that together. But here we have the Siege Turtle. It's a tricky proposition adding a new mount to Guild Wars at this point, because the idea of Guild Wars mounts is that they're not just movement and, you know, various skins on being able to move or fly around. They are fully integrated into different environments. They're all generally useful depending on whether you're going uphill, downhill, whether you're trying to fly across a chasm, whether you're trying to jump across a chasm, whether you're trying to climb up. So where exactly does the Siege Turtle fit in? Well before all this news, we knew that it was going to be the game's first proper combat mount. Now, let's be clear, every mount already has a little bit of combat capability because they have a disengage skill where you can jump off the mount with some kind of special attack. And in World vs. World, the Warclaw has actually a little bit more with combat. It can kind of do combat with other Warclaws to an extent, and it can act as like mobile siege. Not that people do it too often, but you can kind of break down doors and stuff, and that kind of feels like a combat mount to me in some ways. But the Siege Turtle is like full-on PvE combat. The other side of it too is it's borrowing a little something from the Skiffs feature in End of Dragons. That's that it's a cooperative thing. On a skiff, you can get other people to sit and ride along with you. Well, that's true here for the Siege Turtle as well. It's going to be 2-player co-op mount, which is something I'm really actually desperate for Guild Wars to have, because in so many ways, I feel like Guild Wars has streamlined the MMO experience. It feels like I'm not having like meaningful cooperative interactions with people all the time in the game, but the Siege Turtle is maybe poised to change that. So we'll get to those facts in a moment. So just first basic thing about it, it's a really tanky mount. If it's going to be a combat mount, and that as well immobile as it sometimes looks to be, it's going to need a lot of health. So it's got 40,000 health apparently. Makes a lot of sense. I wonder especially how the heal skill will feel with that now. You remember the bond of, what it is, not Faith Vigor, mate? No, it's not Vigor either. Anyway, the heal skill you got from Season 4, where you can sort of trade your health into the mount to keep it alive. I wonder if that's actually going to be super useful and necessary while you're on the Siege Turtle. And not only does it have a lot of health, but this might be even the more special thing. It is, of course, a mount, which means you'll be building masteries for it. And what do all the mount masteries have so far? Well, some kind of perk that you end up sharing to all of your other mounts. So what does that mean? When we get the Siege Turtle, it's going to buff your Raptor, and it's going to buff your Springer, and it's going to buff your Skimmer, etc. What is the buff? Well, it's this health thing. So it's going to increase the health of all other mounts. Now, that's obviously really useful. One of the only ways in which mounts are a little bit weak in Guild Wars at the moment is they do tend to be quite squishy. Not universally so. I think the Skimmer, for example, kind of a leisurely, hovering kind of feeling mount. One of the reasons it feels a little bit more leisurely than the other ones, I don't know if you guys have realized this, is because it's actually quite a healthy mount and it can bear the brunt of several attacks. Well, now they'll all get a jump up. And hopefully they'll all feel a lot more leisurely. Whether this will be really fundamental in changing the game, I don't really know. What I am wondering is, does the Warclaw get this? Does the Warclaw get any of the shared mount masteries? I honestly couldn't tell you off the top of my head. For me, I think I'm going to enjoy it most on the Griffin, which can feel pretty vulnerable, especially if you're like flying around in Heart of Thorns where people might snipe you. But also the Springer. I know that might sound strange, but I so often, while charging a Springer jump, end up getting dismounted due to damage, and it's just really frustrating. On the other mounts, like the Skimmer, you know, has all those evade frames on it. The Raptor's moving fast, so you're like leash enemies, but the Springer kind of leaves you in one place quite often. I suppose the Sky Scale will get some value out of this as well. The only other thing I could maybe say is around Path of Fire, and I don't know whether End of Dragons is going to do this too, but around Path of Fire, there's actually a lot of like mount traps, you know, and lots of ambushes, awakened ambushes or forged ambushes designed to dismount you. And I wonder if now that we have this extra health, they will be less capable of doing so, and those maps will all feel a little bit more comfortable. But then they might also just be coded to auto dismount, and it's not using your mount's health at all. You know, now that we've heard that End of Dragons is not just having the Siege Turtle, but it gives new players a Raptor and a Springer too, I feel like they can do all those kinds of things, like those mount traps and stuff. As much as they're like aggravating or whatever, it is extra value and detail to those map environments and a part of the expansion content that I quite like, and have missed a bit as it's gone away in the Living World seasons since. So yeah, something to think about. In general, I just think that health going to all other mounts is kind of a nice capstone. If the Siege Turtle is the last mount that comes to the game, and it's not that they've confirmed that's the case, but if it is, this seems like a nice, clean, no-brainer thing that they can put in as the shared effect. I'm now wondering, what was the Sky Scale shared effect? That wasn't health as well, was it? Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments. Okay, so moving on from the health, we also have like a speedometer feature where on the UI, the faster we're moving, the higher this bar will go. It's kind of funny, this is sort of already there on the rotor beetle, but you look at the color of the trail coming out of the back of you, and that's because, bizarrely, the turtle you'd think is like this really slow lumbering mount. I guess the devs played with a version where it was really slow, and they figured people wouldn't enjoy it and it wasn't really getting much use. So bizarrely, it's actually kind of a speedy mount, and speed is a mechanic. So just like the beetle, it will slowly accelerate, and the speed at which you're moving kind of changes its capabilities a little bit. I'll talk about in a second in the combat section. So the faster you're moving, the harder the turning is. I mean, this is a lot like the beetle, isn't it? Definitely sounds fun, and like driving will be a real experience. The one big thing I'm wondering now is how that will affect the environment in End of Dragons, because if they're all like really maze-like and have got lots of stops and starts and heavy walls that you can hit, then it's going to feel pretty ill-suited and rubbish trying to navigate a big clunky siege turtle around. I mean, the roller beetle I tend to already opt not to use as fast as it can go. Unless you have a very clear idea of the direction you're going, you might hit a wall and then it feels bad. Now we have like a really big beetle. Not that it will be exactly the same experience. I'm sure that it will handle just fine, especially due to the fact it's definitely going to move slower at top speeds to a beetle, right? I mean, speed is the beetle's defining thing, and that's not the siege turtle's defining thing. But it's something fun maybe to look out for once we actually get into the X-Pack. Another fun movement thing is the jump jets. So you can jump on the siege turtle. Is it going to be this tiny little thing because you're this massive lumbering creature? No, because we have Dragon Jade tech, and as you've seen from the trailer already, you can sort of jump around quite far away at like a good arc, or quite high up into the sky. So PC Gamer says that this is not going to be higher than a T2 Springer. So let's imagine you're a new End of Dragons player, you only have the Springer, the Raptor, the Siege Turtle. They're actually all going to offer very specific roles. The Springer is going to jump you the highest, the Raptor is going to leap you the furthest, but the Turtle will do a bit of both. So unless it's a really high jump, the Turtle is going to be your good like all-rounder choice. If it's a really far away jump, they're going to be the really good all-round choice. Specifically as well because I guess they don't have to charge. The Springer has to charge before it does its jump. The Turtle can just initiate it straight away, and you might find for all those mid-sized cliffs, just everywhere you play in the game now, that's your go-to, unless, I don't know, maybe you have a Sky Scale and instead you're kind of already using it for that role. The one thing PC Gamer didn't talk much about is the Mastery Tree and how and when you unlock this stuff. So I've been wondering if when you first get the jump jets, because I assume they're locked behind a Mastery, they're like really weak and it's kind of tricky to use the mount. But then when you get the T2 jump jets, whoa, it's a big difference. Because I can't imagine that. Remember when Path of Fire came out? There's a big difference between the regular Raptor Leap and then the fully mastered version of it. Same for the Springer. So I wonder how much of that balance they've actually got in mind there. It's also made me think with the jump jets, since you've got all these cannons and things, what exactly they're going to do for all the different skins. We've already seen they've started going crazy exotic with mount skins, like the mech skimmer thing that they just added. The one thing on my mind looking at the jets is I want like a Blastoise skin where it shoots water everywhere. But, you know, it's not Blastoise, guys, it's just water turtle skin. Just like how it wasn't a Chocobo Raptor mount, right? It was the Road Runner. Finally, for movement and driving, there's a special interaction in the water. So we've been long saying that there's probably space in the game for a fast underwater mount. Like a dolphin mount or something maybe, where you can actually navigate down there quickly. Skimmer is the leisurely way to do it. Something else is like the roller beetle equivalent for underwater. They could do that. And where best would a turtle be at home? In the water. So is that what ArenaNet went with? Well, actually, no. They did something completely unpredictable. It's going to sink. It sinks and walks around on the seafloor, and I'm sure that's been obvious to you guys already throughout this footage because you've seen the goddamn trailer rolling in the background there and you watched it a second ago. But it's easy to miss. Actually, some of that trailer is taking place underwater. So we're going to get like that classic MMO feel of where they don't add underwater content at all. They just have regular content. You're just walking around on the seafloor. Well, here we have that on the Siege Turtle. I can't really think where this is going to be super useful. I mean, it's fun and it's fascinating. I like the idea. But maybe they're doing it this way so that they still have space for that roller beetle underwater mount idea. Maybe there will be another one that comes in throughout End of Dragons era. Maybe after the expansion's done and we're looking at the Lagos home city, sorry. And maybe they teach us about some kind of creature like that. But there are some interesting implications, maybe. First of all, I wonder whether we have like low gravity jumping and moving around down there. I wonder if as we like move faster and we like drift and turn, you get less traction just because you're underwater. Surely it's just not regularly walking around, right? And then I was thinking as well, where they can do that as far as the mastery is concerned, the mastery system's concerned, to lock us out of areas. You know how like gliding had ley line gliding, so you couldn't get along ley lines until you had that. Well, what if the turtle has a mastery to like walk around on the floor, but basically allows it to sink even though there's really heavy upstreams of bubbles that should be pushing us out. If we tried to swim down, we'll never make it because the bubbles will lift us back up. If we tried to swim down on a skimmer as well, same thing. But the turtle will be heavy enough to get us down into those really deep, dark areas where the deep sea dragons minions loom, or something like that. I think that could be a cool idea, but PC Gamer doesn't actually make any mention of kind of environment as far as that's concerned. Because otherwise, I'm just kind of wondering what is the value to being able to walk on the floor? The other thing is, it is a combat mount. So this is a weird thing. They did confirm that the combat is like ground targeted combat. So how does this work underwater? If someone's shooting the cannon, and but they can only shoot it at the ground, and I've got like a shark biting at me from above, because there is still a 3D environment going on, right? It's just we're now walking once again on a flat plane. That's going to be strange to see. Maybe they just have the radius on the explosions big enough that you'll decimate everything around you just from shooting near the turtle's feet. So that leads me on to combat, and this is where the co-pilot comes into it when you're doing it 2 players. And there's a lot of fun stuff to see here. So yes, every mount has a disengage ability, and you know, for the Raptor it pulls people together. For the Springer it's a knockdown and a good amount of damage. The Griffin is just really big damage if it was moving fast enough. The Siege Turtle is a massive slam that hits everyone in the area. I think they said 10 targets, and reasonably good damage too. So you can do this slam, but it won't disengage you. That's the thing. So you can attack and you'll still be there. Now here's the thing. The slam though has quite a long cooldown on it. So if you are alone on the turtle, you don't have a co-pilot, I don't think it's really going to feel like a combat mount, because you're going to use the disengage button, and yeah, you'll still be on the turtle, but it's now recharging. And what else if you don't have any other abilities? So you're gonna climb off and you're gonna start doing regular fighting. It's just gonna be a manual decision for you to get off and do that regular fighting. And this is actually a good thing, guys. It's a good thing that in normal, like when you're alone circumstances, it doesn't replace all combat, because you want to be using your elite specs. You want your gear to matter and all that kind of stuff. You don't want the whole game to just be turtles everywhere. Trust me, it would be like Way from years ago in Guild Wars 1, where it's just way too homogenous and you don't actually get to enjoy your build craft. So yeah, for regular circumstances, there's actually not too much of a change. But here's the thing, if you get a co-pilot in, that's where everything opens up. The co-pilot is basically in the gunner seat. Any Halo fans out there, this thing functions a lot like a warthog. So they have an ability that allows them to spam what are called ground target AoE. So you can shoot, 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 shoot. Getting a co-pilot should be fairly easy. The one thing is, I think they have specified it has to be a party or a squad member. Which is what I think we saw with skiffs as well, because I don't think they want people trolling, right? I don't think they want someone to be waiting for a friend to get on the siege turtle, and then I troll you, I get in the gunner seat instead. And they're like, no, please get off with the potatoes, I want to play with my friend. And I say no, and they can't do anything about it, right? So they're making it party and squad based. You have to actually consent to get in a party with someone else. I like the idea of this as a mechanic to meet strangers and, you know, form more connections, get your friends list bigger, have more meaning to group up into guilds and stuff. So hopefully people are friendly enough to actually try this out and get into those random ad hoc parties instead of just being completely antisocial. Back to the gun, it sounds like it does a good amount of damage, but here's what's really awesome. They're doing that thing like some of those Heart of Thorns masteries, like where you could break through Mordrum shells or whatever, or like Wyvern defenses and stuff, especially a lot of those early data mined masteries that never made it in the game. The cannon attacks are actually extra good against some foes. Like there's such a thing as an enemy vulnerable to siege turtles, and likewise it sounds like there are enemies that are resistant to siege turtles too. So depending on where you are, what you're doing, again, it's more reasons to swap onto this mount or maybe use other ones instead. They even specifically mentioned the possibility of like siege turtle phases in world bosses. Now that sounds amazing. But like we saw that, if you guys watched my video earlier this morning, I was talking about the Jade Moor and the Jade Sea. They sort of highlight this world boss to us. But I don't know whether that's ArenaNet suggesting that's going to be a thing or just PC Gamer suggesting that's going to be a thing. But that would be very, very cool. And it leads me to think of one other thing, by the way, which I guess is confirmed not to be happening. When I heard that the Siege Turtle was a combat mount, I was wondering if that meant it was the first mount we could get on while in combat. All the mounts currently in Guild Wars 2, if you're in combat, you're not allowed to mount up. And I was wondering if this thing was going to be slow moving and but have some like fight capability. So it's like a thing you can toggle into every now and then, maybe with a high cooldown. So it's like a full combat mount. Sounds like they're not doing any of that, and especially considering the fact that it moves quickly. So now I wonder, how do they do that in a world boss? Maybe everyone breaks combat at a certain phase, and that's your opportunity to get on the turtle to then all ride off into different areas. Oh, it could be cool, guys. Think about like the Temple of Lissa from Ore, except we're all on turtles and all driving around to different areas to dispatch, you know, problems in far-flung locations. That would be very interesting. And imagine if it's all underwater too. Oh, they could do some cool events here. I hadn't even thought of that while watching the trailer originally. Okay, now here's the thing about the gun. It's like one special extra thing. It's not pure spam, it has ammo. And the ammo's like recharging. I think they say you get like 5 shots. And there are a couple of ways to get the ammo back. First of all, is if the main pilot uses the slam, you get ammo back. I wonder if it's more ammo per target's hit or something. That could be quite cool. So there's kind of this symbiotic back and forth as the main guy gives the second guy a bit of ammo. But even better, the speed the turtle is moving at causes ammo to recharge faster or slower. So what does that mean? If you are riding around super fast, you know, banking corners well, then your co-pilot can pew 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 probably to their heart's content and kill squishy little enemies, hit them hard enough and fast enough before they break combat and start regenerating their health. You can have that Halo Warthog experience where you're charging around just like slaying things. But if you come across something tankier, or if the driver isn't driving too elegantly, you slow down too much, you're going to start running out of ammo. And if they're really, really tanky, or, you know, just like a champion or a veteran, then that's probably the moment where, okay, my gun is out of ammo, I've already used my slam, let's get out and participate in regular combat. And the flow to that sounds brilliant to me. Think about all of that combined as well with what they talked about, how veterans and champions unlock new combat capabilities and stuff in the future, for this expansion at least. So the idea, I think, might be that if there's like a champ, maybe it's especially good at damaging the turtle, or it's resistant to the turtle now after it hits a certain tier, and so that slows everyone down and eventually get off back to regular combat. So, you know, ArenaNet, I think, they did amazing mounts, and people often are applauding like the animations and the art and stuff, but I think there's actually always been really solid design behind the mounts and exactly how they balance them in the rest of the gameplay, and I think I see a lot more of that here with the turtle, or at least on paper it sounds pretty good, right? The only big risk I can see from this information is the idea that the turtle just feels totally crap to use if you don't have a co-pilot. but it's tanky and it's kind of got all those mid-range movement abilities, so maybe it'll be fun anyway. I just kind of want to weave it into my regular experiences. I don't want it to fall to the wayside. You know, like some of the mounts already, I kind of don't use as much as I wish I was, and I'd like to use as much of the turtle as possible without also having to feel like I have to play co-op the whole time. Not that co-op is bad, I actually think it's great and love to see ArenaNet emphasizing that, but those solo applications are the one little question mark I maybe have. That's about it really, guys. They do close out by explaining the acquisition is about as easy to get as the Beetle was in Season 4. For those listening to the video that were there for that time, that means it wasn't very expensive. It was something you could do in an evening. It's not like the Skyscale or the Griffin, which were like these big collection processes with lots of expense and time. So it's more like the Beetle. I think that was a good balance. And also, finally, they are open to putting it in World versus World. So the Warclaw interacts with Siege and breaking down walls and stuff, but is kind of underutilized for that purpose a lot of the time. So I don't know where they would be happy to land the Siege Turtle balance. World versus World players are pretty finicky as well. They like their specific Zerg meta and the current balance, and things that throw that into disarray tend to be very controversial. So I don't know whether that will go anywhere. They said they're not putting it in World versus World unless the community really wants to see it. So maybe we'll see like some beta and some ideas for that after the expansions launch, but who knows. And if you guys are World versus World fanatical players and you want to see the turtle there, maybe take your thoughts to the forums. I guess they're reading and looking for that feedback. So there you have it, guys. That's the Siege Turtle. So much news going on. Keep an eye out on my Twitch channel. There's a good chance while you're watching this video that I'm live at the moment. I'm doing a pre-show for even more news. They're going to give us another deep dive look at the Jade Sea. The footage in the background here today, you've been looking at the Echovald Forest deep dive, where we're going to get a whole other map this evening. Unfortunately, I can't be there for the stream itself. I've got a wedding reception to go to, but I will do a pre-stream. So you go to my channel and we can chat about all this stuff and more. Let me know your thoughts about the Siege Turtle down below, guys. I don't think I missed any details, did I? Get a bit of the community sense from there. And I just want to say as well, I've done a lot of videos and quite long ones this week. I just wanted to say thank you for watching, seriously, to everyone who's been sitting through like even that long 2-hour thing I did. You know, I've had some quiet periods this year, and then I've had some busy periods, and the people that really stick out and keep watching during that time, believe me, it really means a lot to me. So thank you very much, guys, and here's to many more in the future. Cheers, see you next time. Don't forget, if you missed it, I've got the big Shadowbringers project going on as well at the moment. If you're interested in Final Fantasy XIV, I've got a link in the background to my big review of it versus Guild Wars 2, comparing the games.